So many of you have been asking for this, and after an amazing summer break, I'm ready to get back at it and getting back to work on a new venture, which will be this channel, a YouTube channel that is dedicated to travel weather. Just that, being strictly your travel meteorologist. We are going to talk, of course, cruising, but airlines and flights, the whole thing, as not just a channel for the U.S., although we'll focus heavily there in the Caribbean, but around the globe too as we go throughout the year. You'll find it on YouTube if you got to us through another channel like X, Instagram, TikTok, but at Traveling Weather is where you will find this. And I do hope that this is a conversation. The goal here is that we'll post videos each weekday in the evening. So if you do have adverse weather that you need to know about, you'll have some hours to make changes in case you're getting on a flight or a ship the following day. So with that, I would love to have your support. If you would go to Traveling Weather on YouTube, comment there, ask questions there, because that's a big part of this. Is I intend to answer a lot of your questions, very similar to how I did with Royal Caribbean when I was a chief meteorologist there. And you can ask specific ships or itineraries or flights, and I'd love to jump on and help you out as you're traveling, because we know that's always a time where it's harder. You're not home, so you're not used to your typical channels or ways you get your information, even your apps when you're moving around. It's a little bit different. So I'd love to be that person for you. And I hope, with that said, that you will enjoy what we're going to be doing in the weeks ahead. So having said that, shall we dive in and get a first look at some things that we're talking about for tonight? And looking ahead to this weekend, I want to run down that low that's just kind of hanging over Florida. It's somewhere between a trough and a stalled front. High pressure to the north, and I'm going to show you all this on the maps, is going to allow this system to just kind of be pinned over the Sunshine State. That will lead to periods of heavy rainfall in all of the Florida ports on the East Coast. Not as much Tampa, but you will have some heavy rain. And the averages, I think, over that 72-hour period, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, will be between 2 to 6 inches of rain. So very heavy downpours at times. The system is not heading south into the Bahamas or the Caribbean, but rather northwest into the Gulf over the next few days. So shall we talk about what we're watching? And let's get you the details. Here's that high pressure I'm talking about up in the Northeast. We're going to come back to that in a moment, because that also has an impact on next weekend's conditions as well. But there's your low. And as we go through Friday and Saturday, you can see it's just very messy, not organized, and does look to bring on and off periods of very heavy rainfall. At times it'll be Port Miami and Port Everglades. At other times it'll be Port Jacksonville or Port Canaveral. And I do think that you just want to be aware of this. As, of course, when you're on the ship, you've got cover. In the terminals, you've got cover. It's that getting to and from, the embarkation, the debarkation, and I just don't want you caught off guard in the days ahead. Now, with that said, I'll also want to talk about some things that we're going to be looking at going into the next weekend, because that, to me, has some much more interesting things that we need to pay attention to. A tropical low is anticipated to develop east of the Lesser Antilles around midweek next week. There is not model agreement. They're not aligned, but of course we're talking long range. So I do think that we'll see models come in line with either a system developing or not. And then to add to it, I've got very low confidence on the fact that although it does reach the Virgin Islands around Friday, Puerto Rico on Saturday, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, Dominican, Turks, and Caicos on Sunday, that one, for me, I think we have average confidence there. But past that, it is extremely low confidence. So I want to take you to that and show you. Here's the low, Wednesday, Thursday next week. And as we get in again into Friday, we're up around portions of the British Virgin Islands and the northern Lesser Antilles. Then on Saturday, that's going to be Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And it may be a tropical storm at this point, or even a low-end hurricane. The waves with it do around the center look to be fairly impressive. 5-meter waves was usually the cutoff point for the Royal Caribbean ships as a no-go. When we start to see that 4 and 5 meters, we want to be thinking about some alternate ports or some other options. So I want to mark that one for next weekend as one to watch. But as we get past Sunday, There's a lot of uncertainty in what this will be. The American model is curving this next week, but I'm going to switch over to the European, and I'm going to back this up because it is an interesting first take. Having said that, I'm hitting the brakes, and I want you to know, when we're talking something a week to 10 days out, extremely low confidence. And this information is more of those of you cruising or flying next weekend and the following week. That's where I want to give you the heads up, so you'll come back and we'll continue to update you each day on the forecast. But watch this. The European model, instead of coming up into the Atlantic, it gets a nudge to the south over the Dominican, and Haiti around Monday, Tuesday next week, and then goes over Jamaica. So again, this is not a forecast I want you banking on or counting on. This is a first look, and this is just we need to come back to this to see how the models trend, and I'll be able to get that forecast nailed down for you. But it's going to be many days before I think we can get above average confidence in that being the case. But I do want to show you why the European is thinking that this might do this. So I'm going to take you all the way back for a moment to this weekend. And I want to draw your attention to high pressure in British Columbia and Canada. And as we go through the days ahead, watch that move into the southern portions of Canada off of the Northern Territories and moving into Tuesday and Wednesday over the Great Lakes. Then it's going to set up in the Northeast. And why this is important, I'm going to zoom back down for you. That could act as a blocker where the American takes it up and curves it. If the European has a better take on this, that would mean that northern route is blocked as we go through next weekend and next week. So what that means is it would prevent a storm from curving and going up in the Atlantic. Further, we have another possible tropical storm hurricane coming off the African coast, and that looks to cut in between two highs in the Atlantic. In fact, you can see right here, 1 and 2. So it looks to split in between. But what's interesting about this is if we see this play out, that would essentially just keep that high pressure in place, which would then block the curvature of this storm and potentially could mean, a more westward or even a little bit of a southwestern movement. So just marking that as something to closely watch and keep an eye on. And you can see how that moves to the west and then southwest and then starts to curve towards that western tip of Cuba, east of the Yucatan. So let's come back to that one because that could have big implications in the days ahead. And just looking at the model trends, the low that we're talking about for the next couple days by Florida, it just starts to show up this weekend in the ensembles, and there's a wide take on what it does because it's so weak and disorganized. But again, watching this one coming off of the Lesser Antilles, watch how everything separates from the different models. There's just no confidence, and so anything out to a significant amount of time, 7 to 10 days, very, very low confidence. And we even see some potential systems trying to develop down around the areas of the southern Gulf of Mexico. So with that said, we got a lot to watch and keep up with in the days ahead, and I will be doing that. Again, it's the following weekend that I think is more threats in it as potential disruptors of itineraries and plans. But having said that, I do want to at least put this out here, and then I want to end this first video with not only you watching as a viewer, if you would follow and comment on the YouTube channel, if you are in the travel industry, a travel agency, if you have products that people buy when they're traveling, I definitely want to talk to you because I'd like to work with you on potential collaboration, partnerships, and things like that. So I'd love to have you leave a comment or a direct message. And in the meantime, we'll do this again same time tomorrow. And if it is something you enjoy, then I'll lean into it and we'll do more of these and make a thing out of it. And if it's not something, then no problem at all. In the meantime, hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. And I'll see you in about 24 hours with an update on the models and what it could mean for your traveling plans. Have a great evening.